enthusiastic. Oh, come on, if you've had Mrs. Limone, you would know that she sings that with her kids. All right, so I would love it if you would all go ahead and stand up. Go ahead and stand up. We're going to sing a few songs. We've done some of these in the past, so you should know at least a couple of them. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh yeah, and you are more than welcome to join us up here in the front. You're always welcome there. Whenever we're singing, whenever we're praising, you're more than welcome to do that. All righty, here we go.
sin, Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Come you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joys. From the ashes a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Would y'all sing that again with us? Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Bear your cross as you wait for the crown. Tell the world of the treasure you found.
Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity, Lord. We're thankful to be able to lift you up for all the amazing things that you have done for us and that you do in our lives, Lord. And we ask that you be lifted up in our praises that we just sang. I know it's a little bit after the fact, but Lord, we ask that you were glorified in that. And we also ask that you would be glorified in the speaking of your word through somebody who absolutely loves you, Lord. And so I ask that you would bless our speaker and that you would open our hearts and our minds to your awesome word that is not going to come back void. We thank you, Lord, in your awesome name. Amen. All right. And at this point, I get the wonderful opportunity to introduce one of my dear friends. He's still listed as a sub in my cell phone from when he first subbed for one of my classes back when I went with the sixth graders to Catalina, and those sixth graders have all since graduated, so it was a long time ago. But I'd love to introduce my good friend, Mr. Bernal, as your speaker for today. Give him a warm welcome, everybody.
So I had to come up with a title that hopefully you guys would enjoy writing down. The Mobius message of the Meta Chapel monologue. That's for you, yeah. Infinity Bagel edition. So something that has showed up a lot, whatever. I've seen a lot in the past week is this whole Mobius strip thing. It was on TikTok. A student showed me today. A student showed me earlier this week. I saw it on Instagram earlier this week. And it's like a little hack to where your teacher says you can have one note card. Yeah, and if you do this, you can make your math teachers very proud. Still two pieces, right? But if you twist it once and put more tape on it, now this is a weird shape, but this technically only has one side. You can write on both sides of the paper now, so you can get around and cheat around your teachers. They say you can use one piece of paper. Just do this, and now you can use the front and back. So that showed up a couple times over the last week, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to throw that into the message today. Just so you guys are aware, if a slide looks like that, it's a main point. You don't have to write that one down, though. Only if it looks like that. Doesn't look like that. Looks like that's a main point. That's not a main point. I have 10 main points. You'll have to write them all down to find out. Speaking in chapel is more difficult than it appears, at least for me. Some of your teachers are really good at just coming up here and speaking about something, and they can do it for half an hour and there's no problems. But for me, it takes me a very long time to come up with something because papers fall down behind me. It's not my forte. You know, if you want me to come up here and teach you guys about empirical formulas, my chemistry class knows I did that today. I'll do that today, no problem. Speaking in front of people is not the problem. The problem is that I take chapel pretty seriously, so I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to make up something that, all right, hopefully, this is impossible. Speaking in chapel sometimes has distractions. In trying to come up with this chapel message, I inadvertently came up with a chapel message about writing this chapel message. There is no one main point, like I'm not heading towards something, but there's a series of small lessons I've learned through life teaching here and previous chapel message that I've spoken about before. So the point of this chapel message is to tell you about the process of writing this chapel message because it took a long time to do this. It took me a couple hours, and it's only going to last, half an hour or so. I started with this. This is your first main point, Anthony. This is your first main point. It's written in the main point. I know this doesn't seem very spiritual, but it'll make sense with everything else later. As a teacher, I need to make a message that a younger me would want to hear. That's how I started out writing this message. Didn't have a clue where it was going, but I knew I had to hit that at least. As a teacher, I need to make something that if I were in your shoes, because I was a long time ago, I would want to hear that. You guys also know what my favorite holiday is. Valentine's Day. So you can't put me near a chapel of Valentine's Day without me mentioning something about that. So that was my starting point. I was like, all right, they give me a chapel. It's got to be good. Near Valentine's Day. Got to talk about something like that. So my first thought, how can I talk about Valentine's Day without doing a full repeat of last year's message? Here is a full repeat of last year's message. You're still writing? We'll wait, Brendan. Oh, okay, thank you. Psalm 139, 13 through 18, we're not going to read it, but it pretty much says you are uniquely designed by God. You are the way you are for a reason. Psalm 19, 1 through 6, all beauty should point to the Creator. So I started off with saying those verses talk about how the beauty of nature can point to God. And my point last year was, why can't the beauty of someone you're attracted to also do the exact same thing? If all beauty points to the Creator, then if you see someone, you're like, wow. Use the same thing. You look at a mountainside and you're like, wow, that nature's beautiful. Wow, people are beautiful. God made both of them. So like both of them still point there. That was my my main points last time. So I couldn't go that full route again. I had to think of other stories relevant to Valentine's Day. So I thought of a story I could tell you about me in high school and about a girl who I'm not going to say her actual name. Not a chance. Not a chance. We're going to call her Lindsay. That's not her name, but we're going to call her that. Very sure. So, I'm in 10th grade. Our school at the time had something called missions team where we got to go to like LA or Mexico and stuff and build schools, work at homeless shelters, do all that kind of stuff. It was pretty cool. I had a couple of really important teachers there who led the whole thing. They're both math teachers. Made a very positive impact on my life. And among the group, there's a girl we will call Lindsay. Now, at the little camp, when we go to Mexico, there is a little Mexican street market, okay? So a bunch of people, we're all going out there, everybody goes their separate ways. And then, like a movie scene, right? It's just me and Lindsay. Everybody else left. Right? Right? So it's a bunch of little like stalls and markets, and we're just walking around talking. And in my head, I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Like this doesn't happen. Like you don't just that doesn't happen. So we hang out. We just walk around the market, and eventually we all meet back up with the whole group. There's music playing in the background because there's a band playing. And at the time, I had played drums a little bit, but we didn't use the word cringe back then. But it definitely would describe some of the things I did. So we're in a group, right? We're talking, and I say to this girl, and amongst the other people, I said, man, if only I learned how to play guitar, I would have a lot of chicks after me. Yeah, the 10th grade me, okay, so I said that, and I say that, and the moment after that was also like a movie. Because this girl who I had talked to the whole time, it felt like time stops. She looks at me, and she says, girls don't care what instrument you play as long as you show that you have the dedication and skill to get good at something. Right? And like she made direct eye contact with me, said that, and then like walked off and started doing something else. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good point. I've been thinking about this all wrong. So, because of that, I was like, well, you know what? I play drums now. Maybe I'll try to play a little bit better. Maybe that's the best path for me, right? And you're like, well, what does that have to do with anything? That story doesn't have any spiritual connection to it at all yet. Well, because of that moment, at least for the next couple years, that's why I played instruments. Like, I'm being honest. The first couple years of trying to do music, it was exactly for that reason and almost that reason alone. So where does that lead? Well, eventually, we can fast forward to my senior year, 2 years later. 2 years later. At this point, my senior year, I'm actually starting to read the Bible. I'm starting to go to church. I had never gone to church until I was a senior. I'm starting to really lean into the whole Christian thing. And whether it was a dumb decision or not, I was a competent musician at the time. And because of that, I was going to a church and they said, hey, we need a drummer for the opening service. We've never opened this church before. Can you help? And I said, sure, I should use whatever gift I have received to serve others as a faithful steward of God's grace. That's the next point from 1 Peter 4:10. I should do that. So I agree to do it. I practice, and then the day comes. Everyone's lining up out there, and I got super nervous. It's only playing for church, right? It's not like I'm playing for a stadium, but it's the first time I'd ever played for anybody. So I had the bright idea to get out of playing drums. I was like, oh, I can just get out of this, and I don't have to do it. You know what I tried to do? I tried to give myself a nosebleed. So I get nosebleeds really easily. At one point, you guys know like the spray suntans or spray sunscreen? You spray that like within 5 feet of me, and my nose would start bleeding when I was younger. I don't know why. Okay, it just thing. So I was like, oh, I get nosebleeds all the time. I can easily get out of this. So I'm in the bathroom. I'm not kidding. I'm in the bathroom, just like hitting my nose really hard, trying to get my nose because like I do not want to do this. I do not want to play drums in front of these people. I just want to sit in here and say, oh, dang it, I couldn't do it. Sorry, I had a nosebleed. Sorry, maybe next time. I wanted to get out of it. But God's sense of humor showed up, and for some reason I couldn't get myself to give myself a nosebleed. So I had to go out there. I played drums. It was fine. I was nervous for no reason. But I definitely remember how much I did not want to play drums that day. Later on in life, I'm thinking about this verse, 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Again, at this time, I'm leaning into the whole Christian thing, and shortly after that, I come across a verse similar to this, or I hear a message. I can't exactly remember the details, but whatever you do it all for the glory of God. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'll play drums, I'll do music, but my mindset started to shift from doing music for myself and instead using it as a tool to serve others. Using it as a tool to serve others. If I can play drums and a church need drums, why don't I play drums for the church? Like that's, if I believe all this Bible stuff, if that's what the Bible's telling me to do, if I have a gift, I should use it where I can. So I decided to shift my mindset as to why I did music, and I started pursuing that path. And this is relevant to the Mobius strip and the whole meta thing in the title, because a long time ago here I did a message specifically about this verse. And I still have what one class made. You guys remember those homecoming banners you guys made a couple weeks ago? So I have one from a couple years ago of that same verse. So whatever you eat or drink, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. That verse was important to me, and I used it a lot in different types of lessons. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Remember, this is the story of me writing this message. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. My story ended up talking about a previous message that I had already talked about. It's like this whole little loop thing. That was pretty cool. But that's not enough to write a whole chapel message. So I'm sitting there at home yesterday trying to think of, man, what can I do? I know what I could do. I could find a way to get out of speaking in chapel. Right? It's that same voice that told me to give myself a nosebleed yesterday at 8:17 p.m. telling me maybe I can get out of chapel. Maybe. Maybe I can just, play a little video play a video and say, sorry, I couldn't come up with something. Here's 20 minutes, and kind of move on. I really didn't want to speak in chapel. It seemed like a really difficult thing to do. Then I had a moment when I was trying to figure out something. Oh, I know what this sounds like. This sounds like the story of Jonah. Who knows about Jonah? My whole class should raise their hand because we spent like 2 days on it. But Jonah and the what, Anthony? Yeah, the fish or the whale or however you want it, yeah. So in that story, God comes down and is like, Jonah, go to Nineveh and save those people. And Jonah goes, yeah, I'm taking a boat. I'm going that way. He goes in a boat, goes the complete opposite direction. And God says, no, you're going to that city. Does the whole fish thing. Goes to Nineveh, helps the people of Nineveh, preaches to them. And all the people in Nineveh are like, oh man, we're evil. Maybe we should stop doing that. And they turn and worship the Lord and everything's good. Well, Jonah's up on a mountain, sitting there, saying, this is dumb. I didn't want to go help them, God, because I knew you wouldn't get mad at them if they changed, and you wouldn't smite them. So Jonah's sitting up there, all spiteful, saying, this is a dumb story. And that's the end of Jonah. So I'm writing this, and I'm like, oh, me being not fully confident on speaking in chapel, I'm like Jonah. But then I got to the end, I was like, wait a minute, Jonah's not a good role model to go after, so maybe I shouldn't base a message off of Jonah. Well, there has to be someone in the Bible that also wanted to get out of doing something, but maybe isn't painted in such a bad light. So I started thinking, well, maybe someone else would be willing to speak for me. We have a lot of teachers here who are just like ready to do a chapel message, ready to do a chapel message. That's not me, but that's some teachers. So like, well, maybe I could just call one of them. Maybe I could just ask someone to speak for me. And that reminded me of Exodus 3 and 4. Exodus 3 and 4, most of you know Moses. But there's a part in in Exodus 3 or 4, that shows Moses was very reluctant to do what he had to do. Eventually he did it, but he's very reluctant. Everyone knows about like the whole burning bush story. Moses is out and then he sees a burning bush and it's God talking to him. While he's talking to the burning bush, imagine being Moses. You believe that God exists. You believe that he's talking to you. And God says, go do this thing for me. And Moses says, can I not do that thing? And God's like, don't worry about it. You can do it. Moses says, I don't want to do it. What happens if they say this? And God's like, well, here, you have a couple signs to do. Okay, but what if they don't want to listen to me? Don't worry, I'm behind you. Okay, but like, do I have to do it? And then God kind of gets frustrated, like, yes, do it. I'm behind you. Don't worry about it. Even after all that, then Moses is like, yeah, but I've never been good at speaking in front of people. And I imagine God just like flipping a table and say, fine, take Aaron. Aaron will go help you and speak. Go get him and do what I tell you to do. And then Moses finally does it. So like, okay, that might be okay. That might be an okay similarity between me and that story. So I'm sitting there, okay, I got a story of Jonah, I got a story of Moses. How can I put this all together? Maybe I'm just thinking too hard. And at this point, it's super late and I'm super tired. I'm like, what am I going to do? Maybe I'm just going to use one of my old chapels. But I already talked about that in the whole Valentine's Day thing. So I was like, well, dang, I've already looped once or twice. I can't just keep talking about the same things over and over again. Maybe I'm thinking too hard. After all, it's just one chapel. Maybe I don't have to put much effort into it. And then I was like, that's not fair to you guys. I can't not put effort into a chapel message. If I'm up here for, I don't know how long, don't have my phone up here, but if I'm up here for this whole time expecting you to want to listen to me, I can't just not put effort into it. And then James 3 pops into my mind. I'm not going to read it again because we don't have time, but it explains that those who teach should be held to a higher standard of what they say, and that words have way more power than we realize. So if I believe that I'm a Christian, then it is not right of me to come up here and speak and say, it doesn't really matter. That's the complete opposite. Here I am a teacher thinking that what I say doesn't really matter when the Bible literally says the opposite right there. If I'm a teacher, I need to take this seriously. I need to sit down and try to link all this together, put this all together. And that got me thinking, why did I become a teacher in the first place? Right? Deep questions at almost 11:56 at night. I'll wait for you guys to write this down though. Why did I become a teacher in the first place? I became a teacher because I had two teachers who really changed my life. These two teachers were both math teachers, and they were both the leader of those mission team things that I was telling you about in that first story I shared with you guys. So I sat in my chair and I realized I had to put effort into this thing. Just getting the chance to say something positive to you guys, the students, is why I wanted to become a teacher in the first place. I can't just squander this opportunity. So I sat down and realized this whole thought process that I had all ended with the exact same point. I started off thinking one thing, and then really late at night, I realized, as a teacher, I need to make a message that a younger me would want to hear. Which is that first point. As a student, I would have loved to hear the thought processes behind a teacher trying to come up here and speak in chapel. So, that's essentially what this is. A chapel message about me trying to write a chapel message. Individual little points here and there, but no really big main point to go on. As a teacher, I need to make a message that a younger me would want to hear. Now, here's the conclusion. There's not really one. I hope you guys can see that even at your young age, you may be having conversation and ideas that do last a lifetime. You may be experiencing events that will shape your thinking for years to come. You are setting the foundation for the types of people you will be in the future. So if I had to summarize a couple of those verses, be careful with your words, use your gift for the benefit of others, and whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. And that's all I have for you guys today.